Has Dr. Joel helped make your life a little happier and healthier? Consider supporting the show for as little as $1 a month so we can continue to bring you the content you love. Just go to patreon.com/JoelWade. That's patreon.com/JoelWade. $1 a month. It's all we ask.
You are now listening to the Mastering Happiness podcast with Dr. Joel Wade.
The reflection that we provide for others has a greater impact than you might know. A reflection is an image. Images can be real or imagined, useful or troublesome. In Greek mythology, Narcissus stared at his own reflection, too absorbed in his own image to notice anybody else. The image that he saw withdrew him from the world. Not even Echo, the nymph who loved him, but could only repeat his own words back to him, could pry him from his self-absorbed reverie. Narcissus had a serious problem, and it served to disconnect him from any actual relationship with others, leaving only his image to hold his sense of self together. But aside from those suffering from the condition of narcissism, our reflection can be a source of the kind of useful self-assessment that allows a person to live up to their own standards. When we look inward, exploring our thoughts, feelings, motivations, or values, we call it self-reflection. What we compare our actions to when we self-reflect are our standards. It turns out that a simple mirror can provide enough of a reflection to help us to live up to our own standards. This is what was discovered by researchers Robert Wickland and Shelley Duvall back in the 1970s. They found that when people were in front of a mirror and told that they were being filmed, those people changed their behavior. They worked harder, gave more accurate answers to questions, were more consistent in their actions, and those actions were more consistent with their values. About a decade later, Charles Carver and Michael Shearer looked at this in more depth. When people sat at a desk with a mirror, not a great big ostentatious mirror, just a little one that was a small part of the surroundings, they were more likely to follow their own values than someone else's orders. They would work harder and resist being bullied into changing their opinion on something. What's more, when they were told to administer shocks to somebody, they were more restrained in their actions. This is not unlike the important revelation of Stanley Milgram in his obedience to authority experiments that we talked about last time, where people who witnessed others who refused to comply with directions to severely shock somebody were dramatically less likely to comply with orders to deliberately harm others themselves. The self-reflection that was aided by the actual reflection in the mirror helped people to regulate themselves. Self-regulation is the moral fulcrum that allows all other moral behavior. It allows a person to decide what action they'll take in a given situation. It provides the capacity for integrity, knowing what you value, and speaking and acting from those values. It also makes it possible for a person to reassess what they've done, or not done, in the past, and to change their behavior accordingly in the present and the future. It therefore gives us the capacity for redemption. Because we have the capacity for self-regulation, we have the capacity to think in terms of moral or immoral acts. Self-regulation places the burden on the individual to determine right from wrong, and to use our willpower to direct our words and actions accordingly. It also makes it possible for us to be free. Without the capacity for self-regulation, the idea of individual liberty would be an empty concept. Without the capacity for self-regulation, we would live in an amoral world, a world where the concept of right and wrong is irrelevant. If we weren't in charge of our actions, if we didn't have a choice in what we do or don't do, then we couldn't reasonably be held responsible for our actions, nor could we enjoy the benefits of our actions. Self-reflection is what makes self-regulation possible. These experiments showed just how powerful a force the reflection of what we do can be. In these experiments, a mirror was used to enhance people's self-reflection. But self-reflection is also enhanced by the feedback we receive from others, and the often less forgiving feedback we receive from the objective world. Young children learn a great deal from the feedback they get from things like hot stoves, yucky tasting food, and gravity. They also learn from the praise they get from parents or teachers at a job well done, or a joke well told, or a cute or amusing face well made, and from the scolding and consequences they receive from shameful or hurtful behavior. People in business learn from their customers, or lack of them, what's useful or desired enough by others that they'll swap their money for the goods and services. Performers learn what gets the most applause or fills the most seats. Engineers, builders, and manufacturers learn what's possible and what's not with the current technology. All of this feedback from the physical world and from the more emotional world of relationships helps a person to understand right from wrong, good from bad, effective from ineffective. Our own self-reflection helps us to sort out what we believe is true from all of this. It allows us to decide what we want to do about it, and then we have the capacity to will ourselves to do what we decide. A great effect of our relationships is to have who we are, our actions, words, and way of being in the world, reflected back to us, and to do the same for others. The experience of being seen, being visible to others, is a fundamental emotional need. Having a regular positive experience of this is central to the feeling of love. Romantic love is grounded in a sense of being deeply seen, particularly having the best within us deeply seen by the one we love, and in deeply seeing the best within them. The lack of this kind of visibility can be terribly painful and lonely. The experience of being even mildly shunned activates some of the same areas of the brain as does physical pain. Of course, the kind of reflection we get matters tremendously. If we have people in our lives who see the worst in us, or expect us to behave badly, or who reflect a sense of helplessness or actively seek to aim us away from our deepest values, that will make it more challenging to bring our best into the world. We might be persuaded to modify our own standards and be drawn toward those very harmful ideas or actions. Our choice of relationships, therefore, can make a big difference in our lives. If a mirror can have the kind of impact that was demonstrated in these experiments, think of how great an impact you have on the people in your life, particularly those who look up to you, children, employees, students, and lots of other people who you might not ever think you were influencing. When we pay attention to a loved one, when we respond to them when they ask for our attention, when we show enthusiasm and interest at their good news and support them to bring their best to their lives, we're reflecting something precious back to them, and it really matters. When we affirm human virtue, when we publicly assert qualities such as honesty, integrity, empathy, and personal responsibility, we're reflecting something very important to the people around us. When we look for the best within people and benevolently expect to see them express it, we're providing a mirror to their virtue. They'll do what they will with that, of course. We don't have control over what other people say or do. But we do have influence, and we're likely to see more of whatever we reflect out towards others. When we get to know people, we are, in part, building a reputation with each other. What kind of person is he? How does she handle a difficult situation? What kind of attitude does he bring to his work? How does she respond to confrontation or adversity? Over time, we learn whether a given person is honest, whether they can be relied on, how playful they are, to what degree their actions reflect what they say. We get a sense of their style, their likes, and their dislikes. There are multitudes of small interactions that give us information about a person's character and personality, values and integrity. Over time, we come to decide whether this is the kind of person we want to spend time with, whether we like how we feel when we're with them. And they learn to make decisions about us. Part of what we do in this back and forth of getting to know one another is determining whose reflection, whose feedback matters to us. A lecture on honesty from a dishonest person or on manners from a rude person isn't worth listening to. We like to be with people we feel good about being with, proud of being with. And here's a piece that's often missing. We watch ourselves just like we watch others, and we develop a reputation with ourselves accordingly. This is the essence of earned self-esteem. What kind of a person are you in your own assessment? Do you have values, goals, and priorities? And do you act in accordance with those values, goals, and priorities? Are you the kind of person you'd like to be? And if not, what are the barriers to becoming the kind of person you'd like to be? I don't mean that you have what you'd like to have. You may or may not have control of the end product. I may want to have $1 billion, but I may not ever earn $1 billion, even if I apply myself fully to the task. The question is, are you a person who lives according to your values, goals, and priorities? Are you doing what the person you would like to be would do? Or do you spend much of your time and energy going in another direction? This isn't about perfection here. We all make mistakes. We all can take the wrong road at times. But if you often spend time and energy in ways that run counter to your highest values, goals, and priorities, and you refuse to see it or learn from it, your reputation with yourself will suffer. Another part of this is paying attention to how you give and receive feedback. Do you tend to reject negative feedback, become defensive, change the subject? Or do you hear it, feel the predictable emotions? Nobody likes negative feedback. I wouldn't expect you to feel happy about it. But do you hear it, consider it, and look for what there is to learn from it? If you tend to reject it, chances are you're operating in that particular area, at least, within what Carol Dweck calls a fixed trait mindset, thinking of who you are and what you're doing as a fundamental inborn trait that you can't change. If you can identify that you're doing this, well, that's very good news, because you can change it. By understanding that you're thinking of this particular behavior from a fixed trait mindset, you can choose to change it toward a growth mindset, where you're thinking of what you're doing as an active, growing, learning process. Look for your assumptions about yourself that are fixed and immovable, and dispute them. Find what you have to learn, seek where you're able to grow. Sometimes this is all it takes. Sometimes it's more complicated, and it's important to get some help with it. Now, for an even trickier challenge, pay attention to how you give yourself feedback and how you take it. When you see that you've done something wrong or make a mistake, or you've forgotten to do something, how do you treat yourself? Are you harsh and attacking? You idiot! Do you make negative generalizations about yourself? You can never get this right. Or do you look for what you have to learn and keep your focus on how to solve the problem? If you're calling yourself names or generalizing, then you're not going to get anywhere. You'll just feel bad, even ashamed, and you're likely to do the same thing again and again, and call yourself names and generalize again and again. And the shame and other negative feelings will cause you to avoid the whole issue if you can, making your possibilities diminish. If you're looking for what you have to learn, and you keep your focus on how to solve the problem, then you're likely to see the situation and your role in it clearly. And you're also more likely to actually solve the problem. This is an expansive cycle that leads to learning and growth, and to greater possibilities. Getting feedback is one thing. Taking it in and using it constructively is another. Short-term and very practically, there are two questions that are helpful to ask about any action you're thinking of taking or avoiding taking. Will I feel good about what I've done tomorrow? And will I feel proud of what I've done later? Another way to approach this is, at the beginning of the day, try asking yourself this question. In order for me to make my life story one that I can be happy with and proud of, what do I need to do today? To the degree you're behaving as the person you'd like to be, your reputation with yourself will improve. And pay attention to how you give and receive feedback from others and from yourself. It will tell you a lot about what you can do to improve your life. A Master's Course in Happiness is a monthly, in-depth program to help you actively, purposefully, and effectively live a happier, more fulfilling life. This course is designed to teach you the skills and principles that you need to bring the best you have to offer, inside and out. Over the course of 12 months, we'll explore what I've found are many of the fundamentals of living well. Through audio, video, and written material, you're supported to learn and practice specific actions each month that will strengthen you, inspire you, and enable you to lean into life more fully. These are skills and principles for self-mastery across all the circumstances and personalities I have ever worked with for nearly 4 decades, based on solid research and experience. And right now, exclusively for my listeners, you can experience the Master's Course in Happiness at a great discount. Use promo code MH, the number 1, promo, in all capitals, to get this $467 course for only $295 today. Visit www.drjoelwade.com. That's drjoelwade.com now, and use promo code MH1PROMO to receive this amazing course for only $295. A Master's Course in Happiness is designed to give you the most powerful skills that I can offer in a course. It will give you the tools and knowledge to apply yourself fully to the mission of mastering yourself. That's www.drjoelwade.com, promo code MH, the number 1, promo, all in capitals.